place for the planning hearing officer hearing for Wednesday, April 25th, 2012. My name is Kristen Asp, and I will be conducting the hearing as planning hearing officer. We have two cases on the agenda today, and before I get into all the procedures, I understand that the second item on the agenda I'm going to take out of order because I believe there's a request for a continuance, and I'm just going to refer to staff that that is correct.
The case that the hearing officer is referring to is PCUP 2011-033 at 1120 North Pacific Avenue, Unit Number 6. Due to on-site posting issues, staff is recommending the hearing officer continue this case 1 week to a date certain of May 2nd.
Okay. With that said, I will continue conditional use permit case number 2011-33 at 1120 North Pacific Avenue, Unit 6, to for 1 week to Wednesday, May 2nd, without further public notice. So, thank you. Okay, so back to the regular proceedings of the agenda. There is a conditional use permit application on the agenda. There are 4 required findings that must be made for that. In addition, this also is a conditional use permit for alcohol. There are some additional criteria that need to be considered when making the findings for the conditional use permit. If the evidence presented in the application and at the hearing meets the criteria, the hearing officer can either approve or impose conditions for approval on the case in question. If the findings of fact are not evident, then the request will be denied. Public notice. Notification of this hearing was accomplished by the use of public notices which were mailed to property owners located within 500 feet of the subject property, physically posted on the site in question, and placed in the local newspaper, and posted on the city's website. As far as proceedings for the hearing, I will read the description and application request. I will then ask the case planner to make a brief overview of the case and maybe indicate if there are any other comments received by other city departments or any other letters of communication. The applicant will be asked to come forward stating both name and address, and will be asked to present the case within a 15-minute time limit. Others in support of or in opposition to the application and interested parties will be asked to come forward to speak, again stating both name and address, and will be given a 3-minute time limit. And then lastly, the applicant will be given the opportunity to make any closing comments with a 5-minute time limit. And then the hearing will be closed and taken under submission. So at this point, for a decision. After the hearing, the decision will be prepared in writing and will be in the form of a letter sent to the applicant and to all persons who responded to the public notice, either by speaking at this hearing or by submitting written responses and have provided their names and mailing address. I just want to make it very clear that the date of the decision will be the date appearing on the letter, not necessarily the date of this hearing. Appeals, under the appeal provision of Title 30, of the Glendale Municipal Code, the decision may be appealed to the Planning Commission within 15 days of the decision date, and the notice of appeal shall be filed with the Building and Safety Division located in this building on this floor, MSB 101. If you wish to speak, please write your name and address on one of the speaker forms, which have been provided at the front, and turn those in. I have 2 at the moment, so if there are any others, now would be the time to turn those in. And then I'd also like to inform everyone that the official proceedings of the planning hearing officer's hearing are recorded on tape as part of the public record. So now the actual description of the case. The location is 2833 Honolulu Avenue, conditional use permit case number 2011-0312286. The applicant is Alfred Tigert. The project description is an application for a conditional use permit to permit the on-site sale, service, and consumption of alcoholic beverages at a restaurant located at 2833 Honolulu Avenue, proposed Montrose Chandelier Restaurant within a shopping center addressed as 2831 to 2839 Honolulu Avenue in the C1 neighborhood commercial zone. The restaurant is also proposing to add approximately 430 square feet for new ADA-compliant restrooms without providing 3 additional parking spaces, which are to be reviewed under a different case, PAE, which is an administrative exception 2011-023. So now I will turn it over to staff. Oh, I was going to let you mention if there were any in staff reports.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Turned over to staff.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. As just stated, this is a conditional use permit application for the on-site sale, service, and consumption of alcoholic beverages. If the property looks familiar, this particular restaurant was previously known as Montrose Collection. It had a history in regards to an approved parking use permit and a conditional use permit for the expansion of the restaurant back in 2009. 2005. The restaurant's conditional use permit and parking exception were revoked in 2009, and as such, it lost its legal rights to the conditional use permit and to the parking exception. The application today has been filed by the property owner. There is a new operator. The restaurant is proposing to sell and serve alcoholic beverages. They are also requesting, as a separate item, an administrative exception to permit the expansion of the restaurant by approximately 430 square feet, and this is in regards to the ADA-compliant handicap restrooms without providing 3 additional parking spaces. The building itself was constructed as a bar restaurant in 1953. It's been operated as a bar and restaurant since that time and has received several conditional use permits throughout the years. The staff report went into great detail regarding the project, its past history, and also indicated how the proposed findings have been positively met. The proposed use will be consistent with the various elements and objectives of the general plan. The property is located in a C1 neighborhood commercial zone, which permits a restaurant with the on-site sale and consumption of alcoholic beverages with an approved conditional use permit. It's also in the general plan land use designation as a neighborhood commercial land use, and so restaurants that sell alcoholic beverages as an ancillary use are permitted and probably encouraged. The second finding, that the use and its associated structures and facilities will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, and general welfare and environment. Although the previous operator had a difficult situation regarding multiple code enforcement activities. Again, this is a brand new restaurant. They are coming in as a restaurant. No banquet hall activity is proposed, and conditions have been added to the case, which specifically will address noise issues, loitering issues, lighting issues. Banquet hall activity is not permitted. The maximum area of the restaurant that would be able to be used for private parties would be 30%, which would be consistent with today's zoning code. The draft conditions of approval also regulate that no outdoor dining activity be permitted and also include specific hours of operation. So as such, there have been conditions of approval to address any type of aspects. The police department has reported that the restaurant is in a census tract that is over-concentrated in alcoholic beverages. But again, this particular restaurant had one of those ABC state alcohol licenses, so it was one of the ones that was included in the number. There are a reportedly higher than city-wide average in the census tract of crimes. According to the police department, many of these are related to theft in the local retail stores in the area. There have been, obviously, since the previous restaurant's closure, there have been no reported crimes associated with this project site. The third finding would be that the use and facilities will not adversely affect or conflict with any adjacent uses or impede the normal development of surrounding property. Again, this project has been, or I should say this use restaurant bar has been in existence since 1953 with multiple conditional use permits previously approved for this particular restaurant with the alcohol sales. It's located within an existing shopping center. It has 26 on-site parking spaces, which essentially are grandfathered in for the number of spaces, and the sizes and dimensions meet code. However, some of the backup spaces are a little bit not in compliance with code, but again, they're grandfathered in. These would be the angled spaces at the front of the building. Staff would also like to point out that there has been an easement to be recorded with the adjacent property owner in regards to the perpendicular parking spaces faced perpendicular to the building, that is, and this particular easement would allow both the current property owner of the project site and the adjacent property owner of the shopping center to the west to utilize this access easement for purposes of providing the required backup spaces for both of the perpendicular parking spaces on each property. So there is, with this easement, 26 on-site parking spaces per code. And last but not least, the adequate public and private facilities such as utilities, landscaping, parking spaces, and traffic circulation measures would be provided for the proposed use. Again, the restaurant has been in operation for over 60 years until its recent closure as Montrose Collection. There is parking available on site, and the AE for the additional handicap accessible restrooms will be considered as a side note. Otherwise, the particular restaurant use with alcohol sales complies with code. There are additional findings which I've just discussed, which would be in terms of overconcentration, high crime rates, no impacts, and those have been addressed in the staff report. There have been 25 conditions of approval prepared as proposed for approval for this particular project. And that, I believe, concludes staff's hopefully brief presentation. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Thank you. I guess I will just note, and Ms. Simatitis covered this in her presentation. Any other comments from other city divisions? Going through the file and looking at all the comments received from the police department was really the only comment of note. Everything else was really just related to recommended standard conditions. So at this point, I think I'd like to ask the applicant to come on up and introduce themselves.
Good morning. My name is Fred Tykert. Address is 2510 Countryside Lane in La Crescenta. I've been a resident up there for over 50 years, 40-some years at the same address. And I am intending to open a restaurant on Honolulu Avenue, 2833 Honolulu to be exact. And I'm the owner of the property, and we intend to open a full-service restaurant, not like the previous restaurant that tried to run a banquet hall and not have a public restaurant open to the public. Ms. Simatitis has given you a very good summary of everything I would say. I will be very happy to go over a few of the points if you wish. The first the first one that I see on the conditional use permit draft findings, that's what you want me to kind of go through. Is that correct?
I do want you to go through that, but maybe we could just sort of back up and maybe start with an overview of tell me about this restaurant that you want to open. Tell me how it's going to operate, what,
Well, it's going to be operated like a full-service restaurant, which it was intended to be. And as was mentioned, it has been a restaurant, and apparently there were no problems for close to 55, 60 years. And it was a community restaurant, and people that I have spoken to have certainly liked and enjoyed it all through the years. It was a mixture of Italian restaurant at one time and a Mexican restaurant at other times.
Okay, so tell me what this new restaurant's going to be. That's what we're
The new
we're
restaurant
considering.
is going to be a middle to high-class steakhouse and lounge. That's what we have intended. It's going to be dining, elite dining, with many fine assets, many fine things about the restaurant. We have a chef who's a graduate from Le Cordon Bleu, and he will speak to you in a few minutes. And he has copies of his menu and everything here that he would like you to look at also. Montrose Chandelier is going to be a 1920s theme steakhouse, which delivers a unique experience for its clients. We're going to kind of decorate it like the 1920s
Okay.
era. Okay. And we have the restaurant now is divided into three sections. We have a lounge area, and we have a main dining area, and then we have a smaller separate dining area for small reservations. Maybe 10, 15 people might have a reservation. That they would be in the third part there.
What kind of seating capacity is that at?
The capacity?
Yeah.
In the main dining area, it's approximately 40, and in the smaller area, it would be approximately 30.
And the lounge?
The lounge, probably 30, 35.
Okay.
Yeah. That would, of course, be maximum capacity.
Okay.
So we have been talking to waiters and waitresses, possible employees, and they would be very nicely dressed and well-trained in all the finer points of being a waitress or waiter. The noise is not, in my opinion, any issue whatsoever. The building is very, very soundproof with 5/8 inch sheetrock enclosing the entire building. Noise has never been a factor at the restaurant. The only time in the past, from what I understand, is when they had large reservations for the banquets. Everybody would come at approximately the same time, and there were way too many cars for the parking, and there would be an overflow. However, the restaurant owners, the previous restaurant owners, had a valet service that they utilized. So they took the cars, parked them on the street. There's good street parking, and they were also using another property across the street. But noise is no factor. We're not going to be having everyone arriving and dispersing at the same time.
Do you anticipate any live entertainment?
Well,
Ever,
if we
or-
have anything, it would merely be one or two small, perhaps a guitar player, vocalist, or possibly a piano player. We're not having bands. In fact, one thing we did that was objected by someone previously at our previous hearing was that there was a stage area. Well, we didn't plan on having the stage with a big band there. Big bands went out in the 40s. They only lasted 5 years from what I understand, but we removed the stage completely to show that we're not having any bands in there or large entertainment groups.
Okay.
And let's see, another thing we did, we have a partition separating the two dining areas. It's a low
Right.
separation. It's not really, not a complete partition. It's
Those
just,
are fixed. Those are fixed
yeah,
partitions.
and that would indicate that we're not having big banquets. We have a
Okay.
small room for reservations if necessary.
And if there was a condition of approval placed on that those partitions be fixed and that the seating plan as proposed be maintained, would you be agreeable to that?
Would you repeat that, please?
If there was a condition in the conditions of approval that the partitions be fixed and the seating as indicated on the floor plan?
Yeah, that would be fine.
You'd be agreeable to that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and as Vilja mentioned, we have the restrooms. Now, should I go on to the next? Just go what I want.
Sure.
All right, what I want. Okay, the second one, B, that the use and its associated structures and facilities will not be detrimental to the public health. Well, we have a lot of new equipment, and there's nothing I can see that would affect the environment except to maybe help the situation, because we have ADA accessible restrooms in there, and the restrooms in the restaurants that I go to in the area are ridiculous, and if the city would really like to do some improvements, they should go into some of these restaurants. How can a person in a wheelchair go into a restaurant that has a 30-inch door where you have to pass through the kitchen to get to the restroom? That, to me,
We're getting a little off track, so.
you don't want me to get into that. All right. Anyway, so we do have the ADA accessible restrooms, and that is, I think there are over 400 and something square feet of restrooms.
And I think the facility is what this is referring to is, on-site facilities like the parking lot.
Okay,
That type
well,
of situation. So you have 26 parking spaces
Mhm.
and a easement agreement with the neighboring
agreement,
property.
yes, that took a long time for me to get, but we finally have an easement agreement with our neighbor because it's a mutual easement. It benefits both of us.
Okay. As far as parking, and you mentioned from the previous operator that they had valet service.
Yes.
Is that something that you anticipate
No.
ever
we do not.
providing, or?
Is what we will do, what I would like to do, is to have all the employees park in another location, which I will have them do.
Okay. I mean, parking is supposed to be provided on-site for employees and your customers and
Well,
all the
there's-
other uses. So where,
Yeah.
if the employees have to park on-site,
Well, they can park on site, but
Okay.
I own a property across the street where I would let them park if they wanted.
okay, and any consideration for doing some sort of reciprocal access or any kind of agreement that would have that be available for overflow parking and document it?
Well, I don't want to encumber it that way, no. It would be just the parking facilities that we have, which are very adequate.
Okay.
And we did a study on the flow, and the cars would come and leave. They're not all coming at one time like previously,
Okay.
which was the objection. Stage has been removed. The building, we made the interior smaller. We've made a lot of changes, a lot of concessions, I think.
Where would deliveries for food and whatnot, where do you anticipate deliveries occurring?
Deliveries, there is, in the back, there is an alleyway where there's a wide door, has access to the kitchen.
Okay. Any other findings you want to cover, or?
Any other findings? Well, I could go on here. Are my 15 minutes up yet?
Doesn't include questions.
Will it adversely affect any of the surrounding areas? No, never has in 50, 60 years. There's been no problems. The crime rate, as you read, is mostly small thefts in retail stores. That's the crime rate, but there appears to be no problem with the number of crimes. The police department isn't worried about that. Traffic there's a good flow of traffic. The parking that we has where the easement is, connects the alleyway with the front street, Honolulu Avenue. So cars can go by and they can use the alleyway, which is a public access street, as well as Honolulu, which is a wide street. They're making it a little narrower with a road diet, I understand. But that will not affect the parking or anything there.
Okay. I guess just a few more questions for you, and then
Sure.
I'll ask your operator to come up and
All right.
give it the once-over also.
Yes, he has some answers for you.
We've all known that the previous operation had code enforcement issues and problems that affected the neighborhood. Now, this will be a new operation, a new establishment, but should there be some unanticipated problem in the future, do you have a plan? Do you have something in mind for making sure that the operator would follow the code and follow conditions of approval?
Well, I'll be down there. I'm do some security and some supervising, and I work with the police department. I know some of the policemen in that area. I'm not necessarily indicating I told them,
a police problem, but if there was, just any other kind of code problem, you're going to check in with the operator?
Oh.
If they, do any kind of tenant improvements in the future, they would need your permission, maybe something you could work into the lease agreement?
Yes, I kind of got snookered first time around with some of the changes that they made. They wanted to make some changes, and then the next thing, I probably should have kept on top of it a little better and supervised. And according to our lease, everything was supposed to be in writing that was given to me, and I would have to either approve any type of change, signs, any type of changes.
Okay, I just wanted to ask the question as a,
Sure.
do you have a plan for should something go wrong? I'm not saying that
I will definitely
that
enforce
something
that.
would go wrong, but I just wanted to, if
strictly, yeah.
as the property owner, would be
Yeah.
aware of that and take some responsibility for the operator. I think I'll have maybe the other speaker card come up, and if I have any other questions, I will.
Yes.
I will.
Zev Nazarian is his name, and he's my operator.
Okay, come on up, state
And
your name
that's- you
and
need
address
that,
for the
right?
record.
How you doing?
Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
Name and address for the
My name
record.
is Seth Nazarian,
Thank
and
you.
I'm actually Mr. Tyker's operator and associate regarding this business. I actually myself do have many years experience in fine dining and bar and restaurant operation. I've owned a few myself and managed a lot more in the past.
In the Glendale area, or?
Glendale and many different cities, actually from Hollywood to Burbank and Glendale. In fact, before this project, I used to own a little bistro right down the street from the restaurant.
In Glendale?
Yes,
Okay.
actually in Montrose area. In that case, I do have a copy of the menu sorry, a copy of the menu and a little brief description of the business for you guys, if you guys would like to look at it. I would just give you a little brief description of the business. The business is actually going to be a 1920s themed restaurant, going back and just bringing back the experience of that era. We will be serving about 90 to 95% organic products in our menu. We put together a great culinary team that all of us together, we have, between the chefs, we have over 30 years of experience. Our management system and operating system is actually a very unique operating system that delivers not only a good restaurant, but it's going to be an experience for every client that walks in. Our marketing team, we have 15 years of experience that not only we're not going to be using advertising, we're going to be using public relations and creating a relationship between all the businesses, and not only go and create a relationship for all the business so we can all do business together, not only have them as customers and clienteles. That generates employment opportunity too. As far as the restaurant is going to be operating between 11:30 a.m. till 11 p.m. The last reservation we'll be taking is at 10 p.m. The kitchen will be closed after that. So we're giving a 1-hour period for people to finish their dining and just get out, which, comparing to all the restaurants in the area, that is the normal operation hours.
Okay.
As far as traffic and everything, I've monitored and I've researched for all the businesses. We do have very adequate parking spaces that, due to the flow and the capacity of the restaurant that we put together, it's not going to create traffic and it's not going to create any inconvenience. We do have, right next to it, we do have some street parkings on our side and across the street too. So I don't think we're going to have any problems with that.
You plan to be open for lunch and dinner?
Well, our lunch hours, that is just an experiment that we're looking into, but
You're going to focus more on dinner?
Well, yes, our operation hours right now it's written down, it's 5 o'clock. We open at 5 o'clock p.m.
Okay.
And the last call for the kitchen will be 10 o'clock, as I mentioned.
Okay. And even with the social lounge part?
Social lounge is, yes, we're still going to be closed at that time.
Okay.
The word supper club and a social lounge is kind of misunderstood these days, because supper club is actually used to be a restaurant back in 1920s, and social lounge is that you can go ahead and have your appetizers and just and have drinks, but not as far as going to be anything that has to do with dancing or any type of thing. We do have a good sound system building, but because it's a dining facility, the music is going to be very low for people to be able to hear each other. So that is the whole reason for it.
Okay. And your chefs they were trained at the Cordon Bleu?
Yes, I am one of them myself. And I've collaborated the menu and the recipes with another person that he's actually from Boston, Massachusetts, and he has over 15 years himself. And put together, we're a very good team. Also, our cooks are graduates too. They're just trying to get experience.
Okay.
Any further questions?
I think that's it for now. I just want to ask the property owner slash applicant again. You've read all the proposed conditions of approval. The hours of operation from 11 to 11 daily.
Yeah, so that-
These are okay?
Yeah, the one that I thought I was a little surprised with, that no outdoor dining or seating. We do have a small patio area out in the front.
Maybe if you
that,
could speak into the microphone a little.
that I thought possibly we could utilize for someone perhaps to have a drink there. Or to,
I think the outdoor dining issue you'd need to provide more parking.
Yeah.
So
well, I was,
as not included as part of this
it's just such a nice
application,
little area there, and
it wouldn't be
yeah,
allowed without
and
being able to
also
provide
maybe
more
a little
parking.
smoking area out there, which would be all right. That's according to the rule. I think these smoking areas are all right. Is that correct?
We'd have to comply with our fresh
Yes.
air ordinance.
Yeah,
So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wherever that location ends up being is actually the
Right, yeah.
only appropriate location for
Right.
for smoking.
It's just a shame that the outside area is so nice that someone couldn't go out there and seat and be seated.
I mean, that's something for you to consider if you, again, if you're able to provide the additional parking that would
Yeah,
be required for the seating. So if that's some, future parking use permit application would be eligible for you,
Yeah,
or
I think-
finding, you mentioned you had other properties and neighboring properties
Yeah.
that may have an opportunity in the future.
Let them take their drinks over there.
ABC may have a problem with that, but
Yeah. Otherwise,
years of the 5-year period for as recommended for
well,
authorization.
does that indicate that at 5 years the permit ends?
Correct. And a renewal would be required.
At that time? Mm-hmm. With new fees,
A new application, yes.
new application and everything?
Well, I don't believe I have any more questions. If there's any closing comments you'd like to make?
No, everything seems pretty clear, well-written.
Okay. Well,
Thank you.
then. Okay.
Anything else?
That's
Anything
it.
else?
That's it.
Thank you.
So that being said, I will take this case under submission. This hearing is now officially closed. Thank you all for coming.